So you can use NgRx component, but it's not published NPM. We're already publishing nightlies of it, so you can consume those nightlies. We have some documentation published on NgRx.io if you want to start learning it. And I know that there have been a few Twitch streamers like Mike Hardington that have been going through using this library if you want to start digging into some code samples that are working today. With NgRx component, we're trying to rethink how change detection works for Angular applications. So if you're not familiar with what change detection is, it is an element of the Angular framework in which Angular is going to figure out what data or state in your app has changed, and then make it a determination if there was changes to that data on how to update the UI. In an Angular app, Zone.js is the default mechanism Angular uses to run change detection. Zone.js monkey patches all of the ways and async APIs that are available in the browser, so that when your Angular app communicates with one of those async APIs, Angular says, hey, I know that they've reached out, maybe made a network request, or maybe they've opened up a WebSocket connection. We should check to see if we need to run change detection. But we found that at scale, there are a few flaws with this approach. First is that Zone.js isn't going to have patched 100% of the browser APIs. So as new and experimental APIs are available to us as web developers to use, Zone.js may not be up to date enough to have actually patched those new APIs. Additionally, if libraries are using native async await within the browser, Node.js is going to have a hard time actually patching and understanding when those libraries have done something interesting. Finally, if you're using a library that has some kind of scheduling built in, like RxJs, it can be easy to accidentally escape zones and start to use async APIs that Angular was not aware that you were going to call. So what we wanted to do is we want to say, hey, can we use observables as our mechanism for determining when to run change detection? So today, NgRx component has two APIs. Let's take a look at them. The first API tries to address the async pipe. The async pipe in Angular is a mechanism of allowing you to use observable values directly in the template. But we think that there could be a few improvements to the way the async pipe works. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a drop-in replacement from the NgRx component package called NgRx push. Like I said, NgRx push is a drop-in replacement for the async pipe. It's going to do the same thing. It's going to let you use values that are wrapped up in an observable. But it's going to differ in that the push pipe, unlike the async pipe, will actually schedule change detection for you when you push new values through it. What this means is that if you have modeled your application state using observables and you rely on the push pipe throughout your entire Angular app, there's a chance you could be successful in using an Angular app without Zone.js altogether. Because you've modeled your app in such a way that you can inform Angular via an observable API, hey, my data has changed, and let the push pipe schedule change detection for you. Our second API tries to address a similar problem. If you've used the async pipe before, you may have run into the situation where you wanted to use a value wrapped up in an observable in multiple places through your template. It leads to some cumbersome syntax where you're repeating yourself often using the async pipe. And, well, Angular developers have been a little clever, and they found a workaround for this. It turns out you can use ngIf to unwrap that value, and then you can start to use that value in your template. So this has a couple of gotchas. First, if the observable you're passing into ngIf happens to contain a falsy value, like false or undefined or null, that's actually going to trigger the other behavior of ngIf where it won't show this element at all, preventing you from using observables that might contain these types of values this way. The second is that ngIf doesn't let you handle things like the completion notification or error notification that the observables might be giving off. So that's where NgRx let comes in. It's a structural directive that works kind of like ngIf, except it's not going to show or hide content. NgRx let exists just to help you unwrap values. You pass in an observable, and then you can declare a template variable that points to the latest value coming out of that observable. You can then use that in your template just as you'd expect. It has additional hooks for using the completion and error notifications coming off the observable that you pass in, so check out the documentation if you want to see the full capabilities of NgRx let. What's really cool about the let directive, just like the push pipe, is that not only is it going to help you use observable values, but it too will run change detection for you. So now through a combination of the let directive and the push pipe, we're trying to make it as ergonomic and friendly as possible for you to use observables in your templates and to hopefully unlock a developer path for you to use an alternative change detection strategy from Zone.js. This is just the beginning for NgRx component. In order to be truly successful, we're going to have to start thinking about ways to handle things like local state for components, where you maybe don't want to rely on a global state management solution like NgRx State. We'll also have some ideas on how to expand the NgRx component API to make even more use cases easier to use if you want to do them reactively. So that's a brief update on state, data, and view. NgRx State continues to be a robust enterprise-grade